So I'll tell you what, at 6:30, why don't we call the meeting to order? We have, I have to keep looking at my phone, minutes to go over from May 26th, May 27th, and June 9th. We have 3 items under appointments and resignations, 2 scheduled appointments, Municipal Building Ad Hoc Committee, Chapter 61 Brookfield Road. New business, we have 5 items. The reorg request to declare Deputy Emergency Management Director as a special municipal employee. Renewal for BLV radio antenna, gas and diesel procurement award, and Massdot shared streets. 1 item under old business, the stipend advisory committee. And then under committee reports, the public safety building campaign, capital campaign steering committee. Other than that, there is 1 item under other business. There was another request, and I'll put this out there with my own recommendation, and I'm happy either way. So I know Patsy had asked to talk about the Civilian Traffic Commission. I have no problem with that. My recommendation, however, would be to put it on the next agenda so we could actually invite members from the commission and PD to be here so we could actually have hopefully a productive conversation. So I think a lot of the answers will come from them. My thoughts on that. And then I believe you guys are going into executive session without me for another matter. Is that correct or no?
Let's see, there are 3 matters that you can be in for. So negotiations with non-union personnel for finance director and fire chief, and then the collective bargaining with union personnel with highway union. The last one for VGG is the one that you'll be abstaining from.
Okay, so
nice try though, David.
Darn it! No. So do we have to go and get a separate email, or will you just convert this meeting to private?
We'll just convert this meeting to private. Do it
All right,
separate.
perfect. The only thing I will throw out there to the board, and it's really entirely up to the new members how they want to proceed. So historically speaking, and I know Bill and others in the past have mentioned, just because something's been done one way doesn't mean you always have to, and there's always room for change and improvement. Historically, after elections, the board had reorged, and the chair that had opened the meeting had run that meeting, and the new chair and officers took over at the following meeting. I frankly don't care if we do it that way, or if they want to take over this meeting. I'm fine either way. So it's whatever the board prefers. We can get to that item on the agenda and they can take over immediately, or we can wait. Like I said, I'm open. I don't care. However this board wants to conduct its business is fine with me. So that being said, the first item should be the reading of the agenda, which we did, and the minutes of the regular meeting of May 26th.
Mr. Chairman, I have no corrections to the regular meeting of the 26th, the special meeting of the 27th, or the regular meeting of the June 9th. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve all 3 under my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, making sure I've got everything. Any discussion on this from any of the members of the board? All right, hearing none, making sure that everyone's here. All those in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. We have to do roll call.
Okay, that's right. Still getting used to the Zoom, amazingly. So by roll call vote, Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Going through the videos. Ms. Ridlack.
I wasn't here, so I don't think I can vote on that. So I have to abstain?
Only if you through the chair, only if you want to. I mean, we have the 3 votes for it regardless, but you can all, generally speaking, it is allowed if you actually want to vote to approve minutes.
Okay, then I.
Either way.
All right, Mr. Coronis.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. I think, Patsy, were you an aye or an abstain?
Aye.
Okay, so it was motion carries unanimously. All right, so then the next item on the, I just lost my agenda.
It's gonna be a long night.
Yeah, I know. Fun, right? Next item on the agenda is community relations, announcements, and open forum. Bear with me. I have to scroll. what page? And I got it. All right. We only have a few for announcements. Household hazardous waste and electronics collection, Saturday, June 27th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Casella Waste Services Facility, 165 Barefoot Road, Southbridge, Massachusetts. Please be prepared to unload your vehicle. Masks or face covering must be worn. Visit www.townofcharlton.net for more information. In observance of Independence Day on Saturday, July 4th, Casella Waste and the Charlton drop-off will be closed. They will be able to take extra on July 11th. As a result of the town election, the planning board has one full-time member opening and one alternate member opening on their board. The planning board is responsible for guiding and reviewing matters related to the physical growth and development of the town of Charlton, being governed by federal and state statutes, local zoning bylaws, subdivision rules and regulation. The board also administers the Scenic Roads Act. Anyone interested should submit a letter of interest to the Board of Selectmen, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, no later than June 30th. That's not a lot of time. Or email mary.devlin@townofcharlton.net. That's it for announcements. Andrew, do you know if anyone's here or signaling you for open forum?
Let's see, I don't see anything being signaled yet. If anybody wants to make a comment, either mute or write something in the chat box.
And through the chair, while we're waiting to see if anyone wants to speak, I just want to mention, I believe at our last meeting we announced we still had an opening, or we were looking for someone to fill a position, a vacancy on the Board of Assessors.
Mhm.
I believe that's still true. So more information can be posted on our town website, and people can call and ask questions about that. But I did want to just make sure people knew there was still an opening.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a request via the group chat. Mr. Smolsky would like to address this.
Okay, Andrew,
Thank
can
you.
you make sure he has audio? Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So my name is David Smolsky. I live at 189 Center Depot Road. And you guys are probably pretty aware I resigned from the town's Civilian Traffic Commission last month. And I feel compelled to address the board after a bad accident at the intersection of my street and City Depot Road yesterday. So Mrs. Ridlack informed me that she did request that the 2 letters from the Traffic Commission dated last October are added to the next Selectmen meeting agenda, which is great. Thank you so much for that. Just so you know, to my knowledge, the commission has not met in at least 3 months. And that's largely because members are waiting for the Board of Selectmen to address a topic in one of those letters, which is committee membership. So just wanted to provide that background leading up to the topic, topics as covered next month. But back to the accident. I read an article yesterday online, and there was an accident, the intersection of Center Depot Road and City Depot Road. Apparently it was pretty bad. It resulted in a vehicle rollover. And if the article was correct, 1 passenger got transported to the hospital and had significant injuries. So I didn't personally witness the accident, but reading about a rollover, I'm almost certain that speed was a factor. And I've talked to anybody I can find about this over the past few years. I've said for years that collisions at dangerous intersections should be equally alarming as drivers' unsafe behaviors leading to and from those intersections. So I'd like to share some statistics from last June that relate to drivers' behaviors. And the statistics are from Town Monitoring Equipment, and I included this information in a letter that I wrote to the Civilian Traffic Commission when I was on the commission last year. And I was amazed to find out that more than 20,000 vehicles traveled by my house on Center Depot Road in just 1 week's time. Now, by the way, where I live is about a quarter of a mile away from where that accident was yesterday with the intersection with City Depot Road. Fewer than 2,500 of the 20,000 vehicles travel at the posted 35-mile-an-hour speed limit or go slower. And if you do the quick math, that's about 12%. 48% of vehicles travel within 5 miles an hour above the speed limit. 40% of those vehicles travel more than 6 miles an hour above the speed limit. And the very fastest vehicle, they win the prize. They were clocked at 74 miles an hour in our 35-mile-an-hour stretch of road, which blows my mind. So that's a year ago. That's from June 2019. So let's fast forward to today. Today's June 23rd, 2020. And here I am citing statistics that are a year old on the heels of a horrible accident. And that's because I remain convinced that unsafe speed and driving behaviors, they are leading indicators that contribute to accidents on our town roadways. And I still firmly believe there are two critical things that need to be done. First, we need to research what it takes to conduct and fund a formal traffic study. And at the very minimum, for the areas that are the most dangerous in our town. And certainly Charlton Police Department and the Traffic Commission, they have that information statistically. And such a study, it needs to be conducted by a professional engineer, somebody who has knowledge of and experience with traffic calming measures. And those are measures that are strategically designed to affect drivers' mindsets and behaviors. And then the second piece, if the Board of Selectmen is serious about having a civilian traffic commission, you guys need to enable the commission and empower them to take action and make a difference when it comes to safety on the roadways. Now, I realize there's certainly excuses why the Traffic Commission's letters from last October are still technically open topics. We've had a vacant town administrator job that was covered by the police chief on an interim basis. We're dealing with a health pandemic. We had a recent election, a town meeting, etc. But I feel like waiting nearly 9 months to have the board address the Traffic Commission's 2 letters, it's just too long in my book. So in closing, I'm just going to wrap it up. I am looking forward to our new board members. I'm asking Mr. Coronis and Mrs. Ridlack to really be a positive influence so the Traffic Commission's letters from last October are addressed in a timely and constructive manner, and that the safety of our roadways gets the attention it really desperately deserves. And that's it. I appreciate the open forum. It's an important part of our meetings here in town. And thank you for letting me speak about the important safety topic today.
David, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We also appreciate your concern. And we will make sure it is on. We hope to have those letters as part of it, and also have to invite the chief so that hopefully we'll be able to answer a lot of the questions and find out where we are and what can be done, or what next steps can be done, if any, because I think really those are the answers we'll get from the chief at the next meeting.
I will say this, Mr. Singer, it feels like we run around in circles here because the Traffic Commission is looking for direction from the Board of Selectmen, but the Board of Selectmen is looking for, recommendations from a group like the Traffic Commission. The chief doesn't actively sit on the Traffic Commission anymore. He has 3 of it, I believe it's 3 of his officers, maybe it's now 2, that are on the commission. But
Mr. Smolsky, what will happen then is we'll ask whatever officer representation there is to be present.
Okay.
But quite honestly, there is no runaround between the two. The only way anything's ever going to happen is if we bring the 2 groups together, which hopefully we can do next week, so that you don't have one group meeting and then one group meeting, but everyone's meeting separately so that nothing gets done. Hopefully 2 weeks from now, if everyone's together in one, at least virtual room, we'll be able to all be together and actually have the conversation and say, okay, this is what's happened. This is where we are. What can be done while we're all together? What can we legally do? What do we have the power to achieve? And we'll all find out, hopefully within 2 weeks, exactly what we can or cannot do.
Well, that's good to hear. I appreciate you guys making it a priority. And, hopefully that the meeting is very productive.
I hope you come and participate in that as well.
Yep. The chair, David, I want to commend you on your expertise and your knowledge. And you and I have spoken a few times. The emails you've sent me about the topic in the Traffic Commission and the whole bit, I've read them. I would ask you I would encourage you to get back. I know it's a passion of yours. Get back involved with it and help. You've done so much work so far. We're listening. We'll pay attention. And like I did tell you, there were some other issues in the town hall last year that and the pandemic and everything else. But please stay involved. Please stay involved.
I appreciate it, Steve. I appreciate it. I just don't like I don't like the feeling of spinning my wheels, and that's why I resigned.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully there's some progress made. I'm not sure if I'm the right guy for the job. One of those letters mentions that we need to have an effective committee. And do we have the right membership at this point in time? I don't know the answer to that, but my hope is with the commission and the board getting together to talk about it, not just a traffic study, but really what the right makeup is of the traffic commission. Hopefully there's going to be some positive steps forward.
And Dave, hopefully that'll occur at the next meeting. And I think one thing I would really like to convey, and I really do hope you take this to heart, when you say spinning your wheels, and I mean this sincerely, anytime you can affect change or keep even the ball kind of rolling in the proper direction, then you're not spinning your wheels. As long as you're able to get people to listen and to pay attention and to keep the needle moving in that direction, then it's worthwhile. And I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate that perspective too. And honestly, that's why I felt like, hey, look, if I step off of the commission, that's okay, because there's other avenues to try to make sure that it's top of mind. You know, Steve spent, I think, a good hour with me talking before the election, which I greatly appreciate. Patsy, you've been very, very welcoming in terms of the topic as well. So much appreciated there. Bill, I know you sat through one of the traffic commission meetings. It was last September. You're the one who suggested that we write those letters. So I know that there is support. And, you know, if the commission hasn't met in a number of months. So to me, it doesn't really seem like the most productive approach for me personally. But talking to individuals and talking to you here on this call, this seems like it's a step in the right direction. It's productive.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more momentum in 2 weeks as well when we get everyone together.
Yep.
Through the chair. Also, we will soon be having the annual goal meeting, the workshop where we kind of figure out what we plan to accomplish this year. Maybe kind of figuring out the traffic problem might be one of those items to put on the list, at least to start kind of chugging away at the issue. It's obviously it's not something that can be done quickly, but if it's there kind of in front of us as one of our goals, we may be able to address it. You know, have it on the agenda, not just once a year when someone reminds us, but as a constant update on how we can improve the situation. This isn't just Dave who has decided that he's gonna, I mean, all you hear if you're on social media or if you're talking to the residents, they're constantly complaining about how dangerous our roads, the dangerous intersections, how many accidents, and we should, you know, the safety of our residents should be one of our main priorities. So again, we'll consider at least I'll bring that up when we have that workshop to kind of get that on the official goal list. It should make it at least we'll get that reminder on a constant basis.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Borowski.
I'll hold most of my comments for our next meeting, but we can fix any problem there isn't. As Dave mentioned, we just have to pay for it. So as long as members come and say what they want cut or if they want additional taxes, in lieu of doing that, hey, I'm absolutely fine with it. We can absolutely fix this problem. We just have to reallocate funds and convince town meeting to do it. As long as we have that conversation in 2 weeks, I'm absolutely fine with it. I think it's great. I think Dave's right on.
So the only thing I would suggest, Mr. Borowski, is, and I think again why we can't even answer this until we have the commission here and the police chief, frankly, so we actually can have that conversation. And to Ms. Ridlack's point, you know, we can add this to the goals and objectives meeting, and so it becomes ongoing that the town administrator works on with the board throughout the course of the year. But some things, and I'll just leave it as a very broad statement, because again, I'm really not going to know until I actually have the chance to talk to the chief and everyone on this matter. But certainly, I'm sure there are, to your point, some things we can do and some things we can't do, depending on the roads in question. And hopefully we'll get all those answers at the next meeting.
Just one more thing to add. I don't know what funding's available, and I think that's part of the reason that the traffic commission said, hey, we might need to have different membership, because we're not aware of what's in or out of bounds, what the purse strings are. I also have to believe that there's grants available out there for this type of stuff, like a study. I don't know what the avenues are or how to pursue those things, but I'm sure we've got the expertise in terms of, people at the leadership level in our town. So, I'm very open-minded to this topic. And, when you see a car go by your kids while they're waiting for the bus on the first day of school, and the sign in front of your house tells people how fast they're going, and they blow by at 64 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. Sorry, as a parent, as a resident, Houston, we have a problem. And everybody gets it. I know it. Steve's right. I'm passionate about it. I appreciate the sincere attention to it. Mike Mcgrath is the current chair for the Traffic Commission. Obviously, you guys know the chief. I'll certainly leave it to you guys to figure out how to, get the right people in the right Zoom room. And, I guess that's that.
Well, thank you, Dave. Karen, I'm going to have to ask you for a favor. Can you kind of just take over for a minute? I have to get a plug.
Yep, no problem.
Thank
All
you.
Third, I also do have a raised hand for Kristen's iPhone.
All right, Kristen?
Yep. Hi, can you hear me? This is Kristen Costigian of 88 Carroll Hill Road.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay,
Welcome.
so thank you. I wanted to also thank David Smolsky for pulling together that safety data and sharing it with the community. And I'd like to also echo that I do believe that he's correct about some of these dangerous intersections. The ones that are being discussed right now happen to actually include Route 31, which is a state road. So I think in order to solve any of those problems, the town leadership actually needs to reach out to the state and request their help on that. I don't believe that we have the authority to change state roads. And so in that case, they have traffic engineers at the state level that should certainly pitch in, as we all do pay our state taxes. So it may just be a matter of reaching out to the appropriate authorities and saying that we have a state road in town in which there's a ridiculous amount of speeding and accidents going on, and it's really causing panic in the neighborhoods nearby. So that was my 2 cents on that topic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else, Andrew?
Seeing none at this time.
All right, then I guess we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which would be,
Appointment of full-time dispatcher.
thank you, appointment of full-time dispatcher. Go ahead, Andrew, take it away.
Attached is a letter from Chief Maxfield stating that an additional full-time dispatcher was recently approved in their FY21 budget. They posted the position as required. After a review of the applicants, they are recommending the board appoint Tanya Martin as a full-time dispatcher. Ms. Martin is currently a per diem dispatcher in the department and has completed the required state 911, APCO, and EMD training. I would agree with Chief Maxfield and recommend the board make the appointment.
To the acting chair, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Nope.
All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
Patsy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
David is not here.
Back.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
Yeah, I had to run. I'm like, I apologize. I don't know what happened. I let the laptop charge all day. We started at 100% and it just went to 20. I'm like, I don't know what happened.
So we're voting on the full-time dispatcher. Did you want to vote along with that?
Yes, please. Yes.
How do you want to vote?
Aye.
All right, and the chair votes, well, the acting chair for the second there votes aye. Motion carries, it's unanimous. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Karen. So I believe then the next item is reappointments for terms that expire June 30th, 2020. I have a request for this, so I'll put my request out. And obviously, as chair, I've never made a motion or a second. I'm not going to now. So, but I will put out what I would like to see happen. And if the board would agree and would like to support that, I would happily entertain a motion. The town's growing and changing, and we have embarked on a mission or goal of trying to change job descriptions, titles, terms, durations of employment, contracts. And we are now completed with 1 3-year contract with one department head. We're working on 2 others. And I believe the goal is to continue that across the board as much as possible. Anyway, some changes may require bylaw changes at town meeting. So that being said, my request is if the board would consider entertaining this idea to reappoint all those people on the reappointment list who are the volunteers, the people who give and work for free for the town on behalf of all the committees and commissions, and then take the full-time employees, there are only 2 at this time on the reappointment list, the building commissioner and animal control, and reappoint them for 6 months, which would allow this board to then work with the town administrator and either directly with the department head in question or the employee with their department head to determine, do we need to make any changes, expanded duties, title changes? Are they optional for 3-year contracts? If so, what changes do we have to make? And all of that, I think we can cover between now and fall town meeting, so that if we have to have any changes made to affect the change from a 1-year term to a 3-year term or job titles, we can have that ready for fall town meeting and then do any reappointments after that. So that's what I would ask the board to consider.
The other consideration for that, Dave, I just want to add in is, any changes that you might want to consider making at fall town meeting, make it contingent on, or any effectiveness happen beginning the next fiscal year to keep a full 1-year term. So just throwing that out there for consideration as well. So.
Yeah, so, and for me and Andrew, and I understand that, I have no problem personally if they want to do it for 6 months. We've done it before, but my thought was, I want to ensure the town has enough time to not rush. And if we are going to expand someone's titles and job duties and try and see if we can do 3-year terms for certain people, we need a couple of months to get that together and do that research, meet with those employees or department heads and say, what do we got to do? How will this work? How should the job be expanded? Does it have to be changed at all? And then that at least would buy us the time to get through town meeting.
Through the chair, I think that's a great idea. I support it.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Spiewak. Someone would have to make a motion if they want to go that way, though. I've held true. I will not make a motion or a second as chair. I'll vote, but that's it.
David, I would like to add to that list legal counsel too. So that's on the annual appointment list, and I think we should. It's been years since we've RFP'd for that, and I know there was some correspondence with Andrew that we don't have to do that, but it's only fair to see if we can get a better deal somewhere else or what other services, what other options we have. So I'd like to add that.
So I think council certainly is discussion as fair as anything else is. They're not an employee of the town. So I think to Andrew's point, we can entertain that conversation anytime Ms. Ridlack wants. I don't think we have to wait 6 months, but that's, again, if you want to take the same approach with that, to take the next 6 months to analyze what we do with council or how we interact or contract with council, I have no problem with that either.
Yeah, I think 6 months is a long time to be able to RFP for, just to release an RFP and get proposals.
Yeah, I don't think that you need town meeting vote to affect those changes.
Right, so that's something we can discuss then in the future.
Separately, yeah.
It was just on the list of appointees, and I just wanted to clarify.
Gotcha. So I believe that was Cosgrove and Blatt. Yes, Andrew, or no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I know that at least from my own personal experience, I don't know if we've ever gone out, but I know that they have done very well by us. Anyway, but to Ms. Ridlack's point, it's certainly a conversation that we can have anytime. We don't have to wait for town meetings or other things to have those conversations, and that could certainly be an agenda item we can talk about in the next week or so, or the next meeting. Make an agenda item to talk about council.
And council's excluded under Chapter 30B for requirement of RFPs, just because it's in the town's best interest to get the best representation that it could possibly employ.
Right, but it's kind of get what kind of offers. I'm sorry, through the chair. It's good to kind of see what's out there. I know we don't have to, but by doing it through that process, we can kind of read a lot of proposals and kind of compare what's out there, what kind of services, what kind of options we have.
So Andrew, why don't you, if you don't mind, put on our next meeting agenda a conversation around council and then we can have more of a discussion and get some answers from you about process, procedure, and maybe even set up like a time schedule. So to Ms. Ridlack's point, if we wanted to look over any bids, proposals, or processes, what a timeline would look like and all that, if you could have that ready in the next meeting, that'd be great.
So I would make that a formal motion, David, what you had stated, and you might have to help me refresh, but so we're going to move forward with basically appointing everyone
All the
as
volunteers.
presented, right? And we're going to
6 months for the full timers, with
Okay.
the goal being that in the ensuing months, we're going to work as a board and Andrew as the town administrator. So in the perfect example, with the building commissioner position, Andrew would work with the building commissioner and obviously our board regarding that position, job title, duties, anything that needs to be expanded or not. Animal control, that's not a department head. That may be a quick and easy conversation with the chief of police, and he may say, don't have to make any changes. So I think we should be able to get that information back on both, and we'll work with the TA on those roles. And the goal of that motion being that we're prepared for fall town meeting. If we have to have any votes at town meeting to affect any changes, to be ready to do that.
Okay.
So we have a motion. We need a second.
I'll second for discussion, because David, through you.
Yes, sir.
So what are we doing about legal counsel then?
So legal counsel, we've asked Andrew to put that on the next meeting agenda.
But
so
we have to then take a separate motion, because as of June 30th, the Cosgrove and Blood would not be appointed as legal counsel. Unless,
well, they would, well, so technically, according to the motion Karen just made, unless they want to amend the motion, they would be included because we have that motion effectively reappoints everyone except the 2 full-time employees. So you would have to change you'd either have reappointing counsel for 12 months, and in 2 weeks we begin the process of looking at what would the process be like, or the motion would have to be amended to change, I guess, can you contract with counsel for 6 months? I don't know.
exactly. I suppose that's where I was going with it, that we either need to specifically have counsel, if that is a concern of the board, included either as a separate motion or through Vice Chair Spiewak's potentially amended motion. But one way or another, their appointment ends June 30th. So we have to take action tonight, one way or another, even if it's for a month or 2 months or regardless. But if the board is so inclined, we have to take that into consideration, because as of June 30th, nobody's appointed to anything unless we all agree.
Yeah, so Ms. Spiewak, your motion,
Yes.
as it was, would reappoint everyone to a year except for the 2 full-time employees. If you want to amend that to include counsel for 60 days, 30 days, whatever your goals are, I know that the next meeting we'll meet and hopefully have more information from Andrew, but again, it really is what is the board's wishes.
Right. I'm willing to amend it to include, what do you all think is a reasonable amount of time that we can get this done by next meeting? Do we want to extend it like 30 days out?
I think 30 days is kind of pushing it,
Okay.
only because we won't even have probably more information from Andrew with timelines and processes until the next meeting, which eliminates that one right out of the gate. So I think the minimum we should be looking at is 60 to 90 days regarding counsel, 6 months for the employees, because again, if there are any changes that we need a town meeting vote regarding positions or job title or even 3-year contract terms that may require bylaw changes, they need to be at least 6 months.
Nice. Why don't we go with the 90 days to be safe?
So all right, so the amended motion, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The amended motion is the annual yearly reappointment for all the volunteers on that list for the committees and commissions.
Correct.
6 months for the full-time employees and 90 days for council.
Correct.
All right, and with that, we already know what the goal is for the employees, and then the goal would be to start a process with Andrew on what we need to do to evaluate council and our options for the next, hopefully on the next meeting agenda. Okay, so that is the motion. Mr. Borowski, who seconded for discussion, do you care to second the amendment to the motion, or anyone else? If not, the motion dies.
I would rather 6 months for legal counsel to keep it consistent. So I'm going to withhold my second or withdraw. If someone else, that's fine. That's no worries.
If we can still, through the chair, we can.
Second.
All right. We got a second.
So there's a motion to extend the reappointments for the volunteers for 12 months, the 2 employees for 6 months so that we can work on jobs, et cetera, as discussed, and 90 days for council. And then we will revisit, but we'll begin the process and discussions around all of this and the steps necessary at the next meeting. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. So hearing none by a roll call vote. And again, if we don't pass this, then no one's reappointed. So we're back to the drawing board. Again, I'm going to go by pictures across the top here. So Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack,
No.
Mr. Coronis,
No.
Mr. Borowski.
No.
Chair votes aye, motion fails 3-2. So right now we have a reappointment issue. What are the wishes of the board?
Through the chair, I mean, I'm going back to, depending upon how the rest of the board feels, if it was consistent across the board for 6 months for animal control, council, and the building inspector, I'm fine with that for now. But if others want to make a different motion, that's fine.
So Mr. Borowski, since the other motion, at least as amended, failed, you're free to make that motion if you so choose. That's up to you.
I mean, I'd rather have just a brief discussion with the other members who voted nay, with the board as a whole to see which direction they want to go in, because one way or another. Actually,
So since I made the first motion through the chair, I would support your motion, Bill. I would say.
all right, fair enough.
So
through the chair, so moved. So for all intents and purposes, I make the motion that all of our volunteers, like the Boston Post King Committee, etc., that those all be reappointed for 12 months. Anyone who basically, for all intents and purposes, works for the town, i.e., the building inspector, the town
animal control and town council.
Animal control, that they would be put out for 6 months while we review whatever it is that we want to review internally, knowing nothing may change or other things may change.
Okay, so the effect of the outcome, if it passes, is that all the volunteers are reappointed for the year. Town council, building commissioner, animal control, reappointed for 6 months. We will still have an agenda item to begin the process of what needs to be done as far as investigating into council options, and also begin to work with either the employee if they're department head, or with the employee's department head on do the jobs require changes, et cetera. Do they need expanded responsibilities, et cetera? Should they be included in 3-year contracts, and et cetera? So that is the motion and the second. Is there any further discussion on that?
I have a problem with 6 whole months. That's a half a year. It's a long time, and I would rather do this every 30 days in case something happens, or so we have an option. Last year, the board had this vote and they kept on, and for some reason there was no kind of follow through with it. And I don't know what's happening internally. I'm brand spanking new on the board, but I do pay attention. So I would prefer a 30-day, kind of a 30-day, and we do it extension as extension. Our biggest responsibility is to appoint officials that are very capable and that do not cause us liability, and give us excellent customer service. And right now, I have no information. Nothing was really provided. I think there's a huge lack of process. I kind of felt like we were going to come over here and kind of rubber stamp anything. I wasn't sure of what process we ever did, how we ever evaluated or determined who we were going to reappoint. So I would feel much more comfortable if we did it every 30 days. It could be a quick 30 days if there's no change, but I think 6 months is just way too long for when that's half our bylaws say annually we need to support somebody, we need to appoint somebody. So we're kind of ignoring our bylaw and waiting a whole 6 months. I just have a huge problem with that.
Ms.
All right.
Ridlack, I don't believe we're ignoring the bylaw. The bylaw, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, prevents us without a bylaw change from appointing for more than a year. We have done less than a year before. It's not preferred. It's certainly not a preferred course, but we have done that in the past. And I think that the motion made and seconded by Mr. Borowski, and again, everyone, there are 5 members. This is just my opinion. It prevents exactly that. We are not just rubber stamping. I think the 6 months gives the board ample time to do its research, to do its homework, and for new members all as well to get acclimated and to find out what's going on and how these processes work. But it's certainly not rubber stamping, and that's just my opinion.
Right, but through the chair, last year we went through the same process. We had the same exact issue with no one really. It was kind of a piece by piece. So we're doing it again, and I think that 6 months lets us do that again. Lets us kind of ignore it, and then.
So, Ms. Ridlack, the difference.
Maybe we have another. And let me just finish. Maybe we have another pandemic in 6 months, and now we have to do another 6 months. Why not do 30 days? And relook at it every 30 days. Maybe something changes within 30 days. Maybe there's resignations, maybe there's something else. But why would we actually appoint 6 whole entire months? It just seems, again.
So one of the big differences,
But it's a
Ridlack,
half a rubber stamp.
and I hope most people agree with me, we really hope we don't have another pandemic in the next 3 to 6 months. But that being said, the board went through something a year or so ago regarding reappointments that's vastly different from what we're attempting to do right now. The board went through a process that involved certain members of our town's employee team not being reappointed, and then wound up being reappointed for the duration of their terms. What we are attempting to do now is to actually look at job roles, and that takes time. If we're going to actually research expanding job responsibilities, giving people potentially more power at longer terms, then to think we can accomplish that in 2 meetings, I think that would be rushing it. And I think we'd be doing all of the residents of this town an injustice because we wouldn't be giving it due thought. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second.
All I'll say, Mr. Chair, is that if I was not assuming in any way that we were discussing job performance, and if that is a driving factor behind anyone's lack of reappointment for a full year, then they should have been invited to this meeting. If we're talking around roles and we're talking around responsibilities, that's a different conversation altogether.
Yes. So, Mr. Borowski, the motion and the goal of what I had asked for was exactly what you had just mentioned.
Agreed.
So are we going to and utilize the time to explore, do any of these roles need to be changed? Job title, job description, roles and responsibilities, expanded duties. Are they optional prospects for 3-year terms? That, correct, is the goal. So is there any further discussion on the motion in the second? So hearing none by roll call.
Through the chair, if I could amend that motion, could we?
You can make a motion to amend.
Make a motion to amend that we include whether and of course it's not performance based because that's not what this discussion is about, but do we have the right people in the positions to? So, Mr. Coronis, that would certainly be something. That would certainly be something that you would be discussing, and is something the board can certainly discuss when it comes time to reappoint. Right now, we're talking about, and again, this board can do what they wish. We have a motion and a second right now, and that motion and a second is to reappoint council, the building commissioner, inspector, and animal control for 6 months for the purpose of looking at the positions. We're not looking at the people. We're going to be looking at the positions to determine, do these positions need to be changed in title, job description, roles and responsibilities, and are they potentials for 3-year terms? That's what this is about. If people don't want to reappoint employees or town council or anybody else, that's a separate conversation.
Which I would recommend someone else would make a motion on that tonight and get it taken care of.
And not only that, the board should be aware if you do have any issues and want to have conversations about reappointments about individual personnel, they're supposed to be, I believe, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but notified in advance so that they can be present at a meeting if we're going to talk about someone's job.
Right, and given the opportunity to have that discussion at executive session.
Through the chair, I'm actually a little disappointed that we are actually doing appointments on all these official appointments, and there wasn't an automatic email that went out or an automatic invitation saying, hey, we're looking at your appointment today. You know, show up because here's your invitation, because, you know, it actually kind of disgusts me that that didn't happen as a normal process. But we all know that I'm all about process, and I think that the town needs to be down up with their processes, and we need to stop, because there's hardly any good ones in place. But I'm disappointed that that didn't happen in but I still say 30 days, and 30 days, we do it 30 day to 30 day to keep us on our feet. I think 6 months will let us be lazy, and we won't accomplish, it won't keep us on our toes. The board happens to be kind of lazy. We don't get things done. So that 30-day reminder would be just something to keep us moving in the right direction.
So I appreciate that. And there's one thing I will tell you, having worked with Karen and Bill, I'm not lazy. Bill is not lazy, and Karen Spiewak is anything but lazy. So I appreciate the feeling that you may feel the board may have been lazy, but these members are anything but. And I'm proud to serve with both of them.
And through the chair, David, may I just interject one thing?
Yes,
I hear what you're saying, what you're saying, Patsy, and agree with. It's like the process, when going back to our goals and objectives meeting, our workshop, we have so much work ahead of us, but that I think we can talk about at our workshop, quite honestly, because there's so many things that we have to, as a team, talk about and then prioritize and then act, to your point, you know, move forward and with action to make sure things happen. But so I hear you.
It's about majority. I agree. It's about, I mean, it is, but I just think 6 months is way too long. It's half of the actual appointment. It's a long time to just say, we don't really know what kind of job you're doing. We have no clue. We're not looking at anything, but here you go. Here's 6 months. So hopefully you don't screw up and cause us any liability to everybody, we're not looking at anything. We've been doing that for years, just kind of letting it go. And why can't this now be the time that we say 30 days, keep us on our toes? Maybe in 30 days, we will be able to do job evaluations and look at what the accomplishments were, or the positives and the negatives, and be able to redo this in 30 days.
So,
I would like to withdraw my motion, and I will defer to select person Ridlack if she'd like to make her motion.
So I believe you also have the second has to be withdrawn.
Oh, what if I don't want to read? I'll withdraw my motion.
What are the wishes of the board?
For the sake of whether it's 1 month or 6 months, and if that's what the discussion is, could we split the difference and make it 90 days?
I believe, wasn't that part of the original, my first motion?
No, the problem with 90 days is you wouldn't be at town meeting yet, which means if you did actually decide that you wanted to make any changes to these positions, and they required a town meeting vote or a bylaw change, you wouldn't be able to enact them because it wouldn't be town meeting yet. The reason for 6 months was to actually allow you time.
Why does that have to?
But to get a town meeting vote.
Sorry,
You cannot make some of these changes without a bylaw change, which requires town meeting vote.
But why do we have to do them together?
You guys can do whatever you want. All you need, and I'm going to actually quote Mr. Borowski, it only takes 3 votes. So this board has 5 members. 3 votes can achieve anything the members of this board or the majority of this board wishes. But keep in mind, certain changes, if we wanted to, for example, if we wanted to look into having certain positions be opted into 3-year contracts, that requires a bylaw change. That requires a town meeting vote. Town meeting vote is not until the fall. So you could start going into this for 3 months and then finally decide to make these changes, but you can't make the changes because it's not town meeting yet. So
David, why do we have to do those? Why can't we appoint or not appoint without redefining all
So
those
to your
job
point, Ms. Ridlack, the
descriptions.
board can do whatever they want with 3 votes. Right now, there is no motion on the floor for anything. So right now, no one's being reappointed in any capacity for any length of time. This board has the power to do what it chooses with 3 votes.
Mr.
So
Chairperson,
I'm open to any motion from any
So
member of this board.
I make a
Chairperson,
motion, oh,
go, Patsy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms.
I
Ridlack,
make a motion that we appoint all but the 3 that were mentioned, and those 3 go on a 30-day, and every 30 days, we can have that quick 5-minute vote to reappoint if no other information comes and we're waiting for whatever, we can do it 30 days by 30 days.
I'll second for this.
so we have a motion and we have a second for discussion. And the motion, as presented by Selectman Ridlack, is every volunteer on that list would be reappointed for a full year. And the 3, I won't say all full-time. So the 2 full-time positions plus council would then be reappointed for 30 days, with the goal being to have to reappoint these 3 positions every 30 days.
Mhm.
So for discussion, I will simply throw out, I think this town would be hard pressed to find any employee, whether you want the ones we have or new employees, who will ever come and work for an employer if they have to worry about their job every 30 days.
Mhm.
I think you'll never hire a soul. That's just my opinion. So right now we have the motion to appoint, I don't think we have a second. Oh, we have a second, yes we do. So we have a motion and we have a second to reappoint those 3 roles for 30 days and then to have to reappoint every 30 days.
Mhm.
Is there any
Through the
further-
chair.
Ms. Spiewak?
I just want to say, I think it's 30 days isn't enough for what the reasons what you stated, Dave.
Thank you. So is there
Sure.
any further discussion on the motion and the second?
Through the chair,
Andrew, please.
strongly discourage taking that motion or taking action on that motion.
Thank you. I appreciate that, but we do have a motion and a second. And I always have and I always will respect all of the members of this board and the majority wish. So we do have a motion and a second. And as we mentioned earlier, it takes 3 to pass or fail anything. That being said, we do have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we'll do it by roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak,
No,
Mr. Borowski,
No.
Mr. Coronis.
Aye.
Chair votes no, motion fails 3-2.
Mr. Chairman, to move this along, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint everyone but those 3 positions to a 1-year appointment.
So we have a motion to deal with
Second.
all the volunteers. We have a motion and a second to reappoint all of the volunteers minus those 3 positions to their annual terms. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, by a roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coronis,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak,
aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. So Andrew, we have just reappointed for the annual terms all the volunteers on that list, minus the building inspector, commissioner, animal control, and town council.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a subsequent motion that we appoint the building inspector and the animal control officer for a period of 6 months, at which point we will assess their job titles, descriptions, roles, etc.
So, Mr. Borowski, just so I can be clear, I've got very loud noises. You said 6 months for the 2 employees of the town?
Correct.
So we have a motion from Mr. Borowski to reappoint the building commissioner and animal control for 6 months, with the goal being to look at any required changes or expanded duties, et cetera, to those roles.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We've already had a lot of discussion. Any further discussion? By a roll call vote then. Ms. Ridlack,
No.
Mr. Coronis,
No.
Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 3-2. So the 2 full-time employees are reappointed for 6 months. The goal of this board in the coming months is to look at the roles and responsibilities, title, job duties, and decide whether we want to include these positions as well as 3-year contract terms. So thank you to the board. We are now left with one one decision to be made, and that's regarding town council.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, quite honestly, I mean, we can't just cripple the town. The reality is that I don't even know if Cosgrove would even, or I should say Jim Cosgrove and Blott, or Cosgrove and Blott would even be interested in a 90-day appointment. And I know I voted that down initially, but we can't spend 3 hours talking around, these appointments. So I'm going to make a motion that we appoint Cosgrove and Blott for 3 months, at which point we will reassess. But I'm not pleased with this conversation and where.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second regarding reappointment of town council for 90 days, or well, 3 months. Any further discussion on that? And during that time, I go back to during that time, beginning with our next meeting, Andrew will hopefully come to us with a timeline and what's required and information we may need to affect that research. So any further discussion? Hearing none, other than I will echo Ms. Borowski's sentiments. I know the service that actually has been provided to this town by Cosgrove and Blatt, and I do not want to see this town crippled. That being said, we'll go by roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Mr. Cronus.
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. So we have now reappointed Cosgrove and Blatt for 90 days. Andrew, if you would please put that on the next meeting agenda for us. Thank you,
The
Andrew.
chair, can
Ms. Ridlack.
we vote to actually start the RFP process? Because
what?
can we actually vote to start the RFP process? Because by the time that gets done and issued, and then we have to wait for all the proposals to come to us, can we vote to start that process so we can, so by the time we have our next meeting, that's maybe already released and we are looking for proposals to, we're actually getting proposals versus kind of leaving us in the hanging.
Andrew, can you answer that for Ms. Ridlack? Do we do it? Can they do that tonight, or do they have to wait for the next meeting? So it's an agenda item. I mean, how does that? What do we have to do?
I don't know if I need the board, the board's direct vote in order to begin any sort of search process. If you want to do that, that's fine. I would just assume that at the next meeting, you might want to give me some better guidance as far as what you'd like included in an RFP.
Exactly. Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I suppose to select person Ridlack's point, my concern is that we're talking about an RFP when we don't even know what the requirements are.
Valid point.
So, I mean, if
Can we have a
again,
small,
yeah.
through the chair, can we maybe have a small committee that, a standard town legal RFP there's a pretty much is a standard one that's released, and then it might need to be tweaked a little bit. Can we have a small committee to kind of work on RFP so we can present it at our next meeting, so at least it'll be complete and we can vote on it.
So Andrew and Patsy, you can tell me if this works for you. Andrew, if we have something, is it possible that you could email that to all the board members, so the board members could, to Patsy's point, have a chance to read it and be a little bit ahead of the curve for the next meeting, so we could expedite things at that time?
That's fine. I'll provide a draft and just provide me direct comment on it, and I can try to tweak it like that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
So where are we now, Andrew? Are we at the COA, right? Resignation for the kitchen assistant cook?
Attached is a letter from Kenneth Goudreau resigning as the Council on Aging kitchen assistant / cook due to medical reasons effective June 17th, 2020. The board should accept his resignation. A letter thanking him for his time and commitment to the town has been prepared and is ready for your signature.
Motion to accept with regret.
Second.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion on the resignation? Hearing none by a roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Mr. Cronus.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Andrew, the next item, if I'm not mistaken, is a scheduled appointment for 6:45 p.m.
Yes, Municipal Building Ad Hoc Committee. The Municipal Building Committee has asked to come before the board to seek approval to create a mailroom and update the doorway at the rear of the senior center. Curtis Meskis, Chairman of the Municipal Building Committee, will be present to explain both projects. I recommend the board consider the proposals and approve as recommended. So, Kurt, if you are out there.
I am here. Good evening, folks.
Thank you.
So, over the years, we have been looking for ways to increase efficiencies of the town hall, deal with our growing space needs, and also keep the building safe. During this time, we've had to move the mail room or the mail boxes out of the selectman's office and into the selectman's meeting room. When we did the accessibility project, it was designed with the idea that the stairway with the low headroom next to the public men's room would be turned into a storage area, both up and down. And we met the other day, sent you folks a recommendation that we spend up to $3,000 of municipal repairs and maintenance money to create that mailroom there so that we can provide more ready access to mail services and get the postage meter out of the common hallway and more centrally located. That's the first part of the thing. So discussion on that, if you want to do that, might be in order. Okay. The other issue is that downstairs in the senior center, and of course we provided photos to you of both of these areas. There are a set of narrow double doors with wired glass in them that provide access to the rear hallway. All doorways are supposed to provide 32 inches of clear space, which these don't. And wired glass, while well-intentioned years ago when it was developed, so that part of the building was built in 1949, is a hazard if someone was to impact that glass. What happens often is the glass shatters and then you have sharp wired edges from that wire that can severely injure people. So just some housekeeping. We try and do a little bit of maintenance work as we go along, but these are changes, both of them affecting the function of the town hall, which you guys have care and custody of, and we thought they were significant enough that you should be aware and provide guidance on these.
Mr. Chairperson, I'd like to move that the town administrator be authorized to engage work to create a mailroom at the center stairway and to update the doorway at the rear of the senior center.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a
Sorry,
second.
Steve.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do this by roll call vote. Mr. Cronus?
Aye.
And again, just so everyone knows, I keep changing because you keep changing the order of the pictures, the video screens. Ms. Spiewak?
Aye.
Mr. Borowski?
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll continue, as I say in that letter to you. We provided you the long-term capital needs of the community as we see them, and we have identified that we had put money aside for archival storage, and I have reached out to some designers to get some preliminary estimate numbers to provide designer services, and we'll come back to you with that also.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. You too. Andrew, the next item then is Chapter 61A removal request.
Attaches a request from Donald J. O'Neill, Counselor at Law, on behalf of Iris Jennings to convert for other use 17.91 acres of land located on Brookfield Road, map 15, Block A, Lot 50. The Planning Board, Board of Assessors, Conservation Commission, and Water Sewer Commission have all reviewed the request and have no objection to the town of Charlton choosing not to exercise their right of first refusal for this request. The chairman should open the public hearing by reading the attached public hearing notice. I'd recommend the board approve the request. You need to read it?
David, do you want me to read that or you want to read it?
If you can, please. You have your glasses.
Yeah, which is a sad commentary on my life. Please be advised that the Charlton Board of Selectmen will be holding a hearing on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. at their meeting to be held via Zoom, the respective URL. Phone access 1-646-558-86562 to act on a request by Donald J. O'Neill, Counselor Law, on behalf of Irish Jennings to convert for other use 17.91 acres of land located on Brookfield Road, map 15, block A, lot 15. The proposed use for this land is residential housing. Anyone interested should appear at the date and time specified or submit concerns in writing. Chairperson, I believe we are officially open.
Okay, thank you. The hearing is open. Andrew, is there anyone?
I am seeing no comment.
Any comments from the members of the board?
Chairperson, through you to the rest of the board again, and through Andrew to the rest of the departments, I want to thank them for their continued work on giving their recommendations for whether or not we should exercise our right of first refusal or not. So depending upon the board's wishes, I would make a motion to close the public hearing unless anyone in the audience would like to speak up on this.
So hearing none, we'll do it by roll call vote.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
David. Thanks, Karen.
All right. Mr. Cronus,
Aye.
Ms. Spivak,
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
against all of it, Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. The hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairperson, I'd like to make a motion that the town not exercise our right of first refusal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do this again by roll call vote. Mr. Cronus,
Aye.
Ms. Spivak,
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda.
All right, that's what I've been waiting for, I know. But
Yeah, so the reorganization of the board. I will go back to what I had said earlier, and it is at the will of this board. We do need to reorg. We're all overdue, delayed elections. That being said, historically, the chair who opened will finish. Frankly, I'm fine with whatever this board wishes. If this board wants me to finish today's meeting, I'm fine with that. If the new board wants to take over immediately following the reorg, I'm fine with that too. So again, as far as I'm concerned, it is truly whatever pleases the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And let me state, I want to thank you for your service over the past year. You have dealt with some, along with Vice Chair Spivak, as well as our former iteration, John and Deb, some, let's just say, tumultuous times between hacking and pandemics and budget issues and administration changes, et cetera, et cetera. I think you've done a great job, so thank you. However, that being said, I truly believe that the chair of the board should rotate to anyone who would want such a horrible job. That being said, it gives me great pleasure to nominate Vice Chair Spivak and to elevate her to what I would hope to be Chairperson Spivak.
I second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And I will simply chime in. I wholeheartedly agree in that no one person ever should be the chair repeatedly, or any officer position. It's important that those roles move and change. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in, roll call vote. Again, in order of the windows, Mr. Cronus,
Aye.
Ms. Spivak,
Sure, yeah, aye. Thank you.
Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Spivak.
Thank you. And thank you, David. It's really for guiding us through these last year. It's been interesting. Challenging,
Well,
but
you know
really.
what? The honest truth is I could not have done this without all the support I had from all of you. So thank you to you.
So, Mr. Chairperson, or actually, both to the respective chairs, much like Pope and Pope Emeritus, I'll defer to the board whether we should turn it over to Karen for the rest of the meeting to walk us through Vice Chair, Clerk, and the rest of the thing. Or David, would you like to continue? I'm absolutely fine either way. I couldn't care less, and I mean that nicely.
Hey, can I say something? I actually would, I think, David, tradition is everything and you should carry us.
So
I agree.
All right, David, if you're good.
Yeah, you all just want to see me suffer a little longer. That's all right.
So,
But that said, keep in mind, you all know, and I'm going to stay true to my word. I'm not going to motion or second. However, as I always have done whenever I was chair, I will vote to support whoever gets the motion in a second. I think that this board and any board are a team, unity, and they need to work together. So I am happy to support, and I will vote for whoever the motions are for, and look forward to another great year for the town of Charlton. So that said, we will
Mr. Chairperson.
continue. Is there a motion then for a vice chair?
Yes, Chairperson. Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to, based upon her experience, I'd like to nominate Select Person Ridlack as our vice chair. I think she and Karen would.
second that.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, again by roll call vote. You're the first window. Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Ms. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. Cronus.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations, Patsy. And Steve's going to draw a short straw because I'm going to nominate Coronas.
I'd like to nominate Bill Borowski for
Yeah. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. I'd like to nominate Select Person Coronas to be clerk, and I think he'll do a fine job.
So
Second.
we do have a motion and a second, and if there is any discussion, I will point out and to I think what Mr. Borowski is trying to get across. Anytime new members of the board have come on, it's always been my personal belief that we should get them officer positions to get them involved, so that they feel that they are, because they are truly equals. And just because you're a new member shouldn't mean you shouldn't be an officer. And I like to see them get involved and have that opportunity. So thank you for the motion and thank you for the second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do it by roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coronas,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski, Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Well, I'm going to flicking the screen here. So chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. So congratulations from me to Ms. Spiewak, Ms. Ridlack, and Mr. Coronas. And my sincerest wishes that you have a great year as the officers of this board. And I wish you all the utmost success in those roles. And I know you know me. That is from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So Andrew, that being said, they want me to suffer for a little while longer.
Get this.
We will then go to request to declare Deputy Emergency Management Director as a special municipal employee. Andrew, if you would, please.
During the reappointment discussion, you were made aware that Carl Ekman will not be seeking reappointment as the Emergency Management Director. Fire Chief Knopf has requested that he be appointed the Emergency Management Director, and also asked that the board appoint the Deputy Emergency Management Director as a special municipal employee. The Deputy Emergency Management Director has never been a paid position, and Chief Knopf will be applying part of the stipend for that position. Terry Goff is the Deputy Emergency Management Director as well as Administrative Assistant for the Fire Department. The status of special municipal employee would be for the position that is designated and not to the person. I would recommend that the board designate the Deputy Emergency Management Director position as a special municipal employee.
Through the chair, I move that we designate the Deputy Emergency Management Director position as a special municipal employee.
A second motion.
We have a motion and a second. And just for anyone watching, if they question the reason we designate the position and not the person is so that it never changes. If the person changes, the position will always have that ability. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will do it by a roll call vote. Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Mr. Coronas.
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you. Andrew, I believe the next item is the renewal of the BVL radio antenna.
On July 7th, 2015, at the request of the fire department, the board approved the license for the installation of an antenna located on the chimney at the Buffinville Ranger Station and radio receiving located in the Ranger Station. It was needed due to some areas that are very difficult for radio coverage, and one of those is the southeast side of town for Buffinville. This contract was for 5 years and expired on April 1st, 2020. You're being asked to renew this contract for 10 years and allow the fire chief or deputy chief to sign on behalf of the town. I'd recommend that the board approve the renewal for 10 years, effective April 1st, 2020, and expire April 1st, 2030, and authorize the fire chief or deputy chief to sign on behalf of the town.
Through the chair, through the chair, just a very quick question. Andrew, do you know why we're doing 10 years this time and not 5?
It was requested by the Army Corps. Basically, it's just kind of like administrative support. They'd rather do it every 10 years than every 5, because you have to deal with federal government. So
that's honestly what I kind of assumed, but I just want to make sure I wasn't crazy. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the renewal for 10 years, effective April 1st, 2020, and expire April 1st, 2030, and authorize the fire chief or deputy chief to sign on behalf of the town.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, again, we'll go by roll call vote. Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Mr. Cronus.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're moving right through. Gas and diesel procurement award. Andrew?
Charlton participated in the FY21 joint fuel procurement through Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. Bids were submitted by Peterson Oil, Dennis K. Burke, and AmeriGas, Palmer office. After review of the bids, you were asked to award gas and diesel to Dennis K. Burke, Inc., diesel fuel for $1.53.20 per gallon and $1.58.20 for a winter blend in unleaded gas at $1.42.20 per gallon and $1.57.2 for super. Because our oil usage was over 50,000 gallons, we're putting out an invitation for bid for oil and propane with a bid opening date of July 9th, 2020. I'd recommend the board make the award of the products in the letter.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will do this by roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
And I didn't do that because you were drinking.
Sure.
You were literally, like I said, it's how I do it. You were the first window. So I'll go right across the top. Mr. Coronis.
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. The last item under new business is Massdot Shared Streets and Spaces Funding Program. Andrew?
So Massdot, in partnership with the Bar Foundation, is announcing a Shared Streets and Spaces program to provide technical and human assistance to help Massachusetts cities and towns conceive, design, and execute shared streets and space projects and engage their residents and business in that process. We're looking into options to see if we have any projects that would fit into the guidelines required. And just as additional information for the board, right before this meeting, there was a technical assistance webinar that was hosted by Central Mass Regional Planning Commission regarding the projects that this grant is intended for. What they're looking to do is basically very short, projects that can be implemented in a very short window. So the awards are looking for projects that would take 15 to 30 days to complete and would be completed before Friday, October 30th. A lot of this program stemmed from the COVID-19 pandemic, and what they're specifically targeting are things that help the pedestrian ways and help businesses that might be infringing upon, parking lots and sidewalks and stuff. So some of the projects that they suggested included temporary bike lanes, expanded sidewalks, curb improvements, expanded outdoor dining areas, safe routes to school, traffic calming measures, and outdoor civic spaces. And I thought specifically was traffic calming measures, because that was something that we were discussing earlier. If there's anything in those areas that we could initially put out there that would, visually reduce traffic, in areas that we know is an issue. This could be something that we could get some quick money for and have it implemented, but we need to have a plan in place. So hopefully we can have a quick discussion on that with the Traffic Commission and potentially leverage some of these funds for that purpose.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we need anything tonight?
Nothing tonight, unless you guys have any additional ideas to consider. I know that Town Planner Randy Benson was also on the call, so we'll try to coordinate efforts for the most advantageous proposal if one fits within our abilities.
Through the chair, so it's too bad that the timing is so short, because it would actually work in well with the sidewalk grant that's already there. That's kind of, but maybe where the accident was yesterday, that huge accident, perhaps there's some sort of mitigation, tree cutting or something that we could immediately. So that's exciting. That's good.
Right, we're gonna need some guidance as far as what we could potentially done, and perhaps quick engineering costs could be included in that. We'll look to see how we can do it, but I thought the traffic calming measures seemed to hit on what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I'd suggest if you took a look at Stafford Street and Center Depot Road, and then the intersection at Ronnie's. Take a look at both.
On the 5 letter, I'm sorry, through the chair, on those 5 letters that were submitted, because there's like 5 or 7 letters that were submitted through the traffic study committee. Maybe there's recommendations right in there that we'll be able to do with that kind of money.
So I'll refer back to what Massdot had submitted for recommendations for those intersections, and perhaps those funds could be used for those.
Perfect.
Thank you.
But what you pointed, I'm sorry, through the chair, but you also pointed out, Andrew, that that's also including design costs.
Potentially, if we need those design costs, the grant overview was basically saying that traffic signaling was the one item that needed some level of engineer sign off before submitting a grant application, because they don't want to give you money to come in and say, well, this doesn't even work at all. They don't want to throw good money after bad. So they want at least some sort of sign off from an engineer that traffic measures would actually meet Massdot standards.
That is a tight window then.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to make it happen.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew. That being said, I guess we move on to old business and the Stipend Advisory Committee.
All right. So just for your information, the Stipend Advisory Committee was formed April 10th, 2018. They were charged with reviewing stipends and bringing back recommendations to the board for the next annual town meeting. This committee consists of 2 current board committee commission members, 3 citizens at large, 1 member of the or appointed by the Personnel Board and the Human Resources Director. To date, the following have been appointed: Richard Vaughn, Gene Vincent, Robert Leary, and Frank Morrell. At the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee held May 27th, it was mentioned that stipends need to be looked at. Chairman Singer has asked for these items to be on the agenda for further discussion and consideration. So David, I'll turn it over to you.
So that being said, Andrew, I'm actually going to open up to the board.
Yeah, Chairperson Singer, I'm happy to sit on that committee. In fact, I want to thank Assessor Vaughn. He was kind enough to send me over some of the work that had been done before. When I come in this week to sign payroll and everything else we need to sign, I'll make sure, Mary, if you're on, I'm gonna give you a piece of paper to hopefully make copies that we can send out to the board around kind of what was looked at before. But if the board was so inclined, unless someone else feels strongly, I would happily defer. I would be happy to volunteer to help out with that.
Still the chair. I'm not making motions, but is there a
I
motion?
make a motion that we appoint Bill to sit on the stipend committee and make everybody happy with their stipends in the town hall.
If that were the case, I'd cut them all, but I'm not gonna get into that.
Okay, so we have a volunteer and a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do this by roll call vote. Ms. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
All right.
Mr. Cronus,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously, and thank you, Mr. Borowski, for volunteering. Well, I think, is there anything, Andrew, under policy review or no?
Nothing on the policy review.
Wait, I'm sorry,
Hey.
stop. We have.
Hey. Back it up.
Hey, I caught that. So, committee reports. We do have the Public Safety Building Capital Campaign Steering Committee. I will hand this over to Ms. Spiewak.
Thank you, David. And I will actually hand it over to, is Noreen, Steve, are you both the co-chairs of the Capital Campaign Steering Committee? I believe they're both on tonight. And we have just a little bit of a surprise for everybody. So, Steve, did you want to?
Sure.
Is he muted? Or nope, there we go.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Coleman.
you. Good evening, members of the board. Congratulations to the new board members and your new roles that you were appointed to tonight. We wish you the very best. The Capital Campaign Committee, as Mrs. Spiewak mentioned, Ms. Johnson is on, and we're proud to report to the board tonight that the last time we were on, we told you that we were going to be meeting with the Hyde Dexter Russell Charitable Foundation. We met with them last week. We had a very good meeting. We presented the newly created video to them. We had some great dialogue. They had some excellent questions. And we're happy to report that as of today, the Hyde Dexter Russell Charitable Foundation has committed $100,000 to the project. That is contingent upon financial approval of the voters in the fall. So providing that the project moves forward with a successful vote for financing, they will commit that money. But we were very, very excited not only to present with them, but to get that news yesterday that they were going to commit those funds. So we thank them very much for their generous gift.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, and I will never speak for the board, but on behalf of this selectman and this resident, a very sincere thank you. That's a huge commitment, and very, very gracious and generous.
Agreed.
Agree.
Karen's
Yep,
still smiling.
I know.
Karen's gonna be smiling for the rest of the night. So.
Yep, we're just getting started, right, Steve? Maureen?
That's correct.
And
Karen,
did Noreen? I didn't know if Steve. Do you know if Noreen wanted to mention anything tonight? I believe she's on.
Yes, she is on.
Yep, I'm on. Thank you. And we're so grateful to the foundation for their initial gift and pledge. And to Karen's comment, we do see this as the first of many gifts that we will be receiving and commitments from both local residents and area foundations, because Charlton is part of a regional response, and other communities also rely on the capabilities of our emergency response systems. And I think there is recognition of that in this Hyde Dexter Russell Foundation gift. And so, we're off to a good start, and we intend to keep going and helping to defer the cost to the taxpayers. So thank you.
Yeah, so thank you to them, and I think also a thank you is owed to the committee. Everyone knows without their work, this wouldn't be happening. So, you know, it's a team effort. So all of you who pushed for this and are finding ways to reduce the financial impact to the residents, it's a kudos to you as well.
Thank you. And I
Thank
do
you,
know
Mr.
through the chair, I do know other members, you know, there are other members who are on. If they wanted to say something, I would ask that you allow them to speak. Otherwise,
No
just,
problem
you're
with
right.
that. And you know that my kudos is to all of the members of the committee.
Right, right. And we're very grateful. It's a small but mighty team. I guess they don't want to
The
speak.
chair,
They
Karen,
prefer to do everything in the background. So yeah.
do we, through the chair, can we, as the Board of Selectmen, can we actually send a formal thank you, or I'm sure that the committee will also,
Andrew,
can we also do something just to, I mean, that's a pretty amazing gift, and
Andrew, I'm sure we must be able to do something.
We'll work that out internally, try to get something together for you guys to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's very thoughtful.
well,
And we, of course,
I mean, Karen, if you guys want a formal letter too, but you know that everybody's thankful for, we know how much you're doing. But you know, just a letter of just recognition, that's pretty amazing.
Andrew, if you could craft something and get it to the members to approve, that'd be awesome.
all right. Stay tuned next week or next month.
There you go. All right. So wonderful news. We'll hopefully keep going on that upward trend. So there is now no other committee reports. We will move on. Andrew, there is nothing under policy review. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So do you have a TA report for us this evening?
Just a few things. So Lynn Dyer and I have been working on evaluating HR software to track employee qualifications, training, and doing formal performance evaluations. We were meeting with Civic HR to provide a proposal, and we had a meeting with them today. We have yet to get any financial proposals, and we still have to evaluate their performance evaluation tool. But we're hoping to have something in place before officially moving forward with the annual performance reviews. We do have the draft paper forms that we have as backups, but we'd like to get that going soon, hopefully with a permanent solution in place, but we know that it's that the board does want this in place as soon as possible. So either way, we'll be working on performance evaluations along with that. We also, members of the finance team and board of assessors held interviews for the director of assessing in transition position today. We did have one applicant for the position, very highly qualified, Kathy Stanley. Her, after review by us, would be considered by the board of assessors as to whether or not to make a recommendation for her appointment. So stay tuned for the next meeting. And we're also working on improving the Dropbox at the town hall to better serve the public. So right now we have the metal Dropbox that employees have to actually go outside to check right now. Given the amount of use that's gotten while we've been closed, we've decided that we should look at more secure ways to both detect documents being dropped off and our employees that are checking it. So we're working on a plan to replace where that old digital bulletin board is with a more permanent Dropbox that actually brings the information being dropped off into the building rather than having to be fetched outside the building. So that's another project that we're currently working on. That's all I have for right now, but for my report.
Thank you,
Through the
Andrew.
chair.
Yes, Karen.
Andrew, could you just touch on, remind everyone about the hours and what's open and, you know, staffing and all that?
Yeah, so right now we're at about 80% of our typical capacity for individuals. Right now we're working generally the normal business hours that town hall would typically be open. Our plan of action right now is that beginning July 6th, we'll be reopening to the public security protections in place for our employees, including plexiglass screens, requesting that anybody coming into the building wear a face mask, kind of the general requirements. But as of that time, just about all employees, with the exception of those with personal restrictions, will be back in work.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
Anything else, or is that it? If that's it, then the one remaining item is the Treehouse Brewing Company application for a temporary outdoor dining and traffic and crowd management permit. Andrew, if you would, please.
Treehouse Brewing Company, Inc. is looking to host fireworks on their premise on July 4th. They're looking for approval of a temporary extension of their licensed premise to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages to include the parking lot for this event. This request is in order to comply with the social distancing regulations required of restaurants allowed to operate in phase 2 of the reopening plan from COVID-19. As outlined in the governor's order on June 1st relative to reopening establishments for on-site consumption under phase 2, local licensing authorities may alter the description of the licensee's licensed premise to expand for outdoor seating that the local licensing authority deems reasonable and proper without additional approval from the ABCC until November 1st, 2020. Additionally, a traffic and crowd management permit to be used on July 4th, 2020 from 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. is included. A meeting was held on Monday, June 22nd, 2020 at Treehouse with myself and the departments needed to discuss the alcohol licensing alterations for July 4th, 2020, social distancing guidelines, fireworks, traffic flow. All involved departments have approved the plan as described. Chief Maxfield has requested that they hire one additional officer for the event than initially requested. I'd recommend that the board approve the request.
Chairperson, I'll make a motion that we approve the request contingent upon the hiring of the one additional officer that Chief Maxfield has requested.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
How many officers does that additional one total in? For the entire event?
For the 4 hours of the event.
I think what about when people go to fireworks, they trickle in, but they all leave at the same time. And I'm a little concerned about Route 20.
So if I understand, Andrew, do you want to answer his question? So they thought of that.
Their proposal for this event was basically that it's a ticketed only event and limited to 125 cars.
Oh.
They would also then control the flow in on timed entry, and they would control the flow out. So that would alleviate any of the concerns over that.
Right.
Very good.
Anything else? No? That said, our next meeting.
Oh, David, through the chair, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. You wait till I'm about to read the
No.
adjournment.
Well, actually, I do have something else, but I don't think that we actually voted.
Yeah, we have to vote. Hey, David, we have to vote. Come on, Chairman.
All right. I thought we just slide that one through. Right.
This is your last, call for vote for your term. Enjoy yourself.
Well, no, we still have to do the
attention.
adjournment, so we're not technically.
Oh, you're right. Good point. No, you're right. Good point.
All right. So that said, is there a motion?
Yes, I made it. Contingent upon Chief Maxfield's request.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? By roll call vote, Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Aye.
Mr. Cronus.
Aye.
Ms. Biwak.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now we will move on to the next meeting announcement, which is the BOS's regular meeting, July 14th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m., which may or may not be, depending on what Andrew can do, in person for us, which means everyone is expected to get dressed again.
Actually, Mr. Chairperson, just a quick comment on that. Not about getting dressed for it, but rather just want to give everybody a reminder, and I believe Town Clerk LaCroix is on, that we have until August 5th and that's it, to vote to put a debt exclusion or not on the ballot. So if we're only having one meeting on Bastille Day, for those who want to celebrate the French Revolution, we're going to have a real serious conversation with everybody around that to say, how are we going to fund it, the debt exclusion, et cetera, et cetera. And as a reminder, you need a supermajority of 4 to put a debt exclusion on the ballot. So I'm hoping, Andrew, to you, that we're going to have a financial discussion on July 14th.
So Andrew, to Mr. Borowski's point.
Or Karen, through you, however you want to think about it. So.
Well, the bottom line is a point well taken, and that I think we are all aware. The clock is ticking. So that being said, Andrew, we really should ensure that, what was the date? August what?
I believe, Karen, if you're still on, I believe it's August 5th because it's a presidential election.
Okay, so we want to have this done by the first or second meeting of July. So Andrew, whatever it takes, and if we have to have, as we've had plenty over the last year, additional meetings to get it done, we will. And I will say, having worked with the majority of this board, we didn't go by every other week schedule. We did what we had to get the job done, and we will do what we have to get the job done now, and make sure this is done in time.
Agreed. And whatever meetings we have to have with FinCom, with the finance director, with the TA, let's just, to your point, we'll get it done and we'll be ready.
Yep, we'll get it done. All right. Thank you. And Mr. Borowski, thank you for the point. That being said, again, our next regular meeting is July 14th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Would anyone care to make a motion regarding executive session?
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, as usual, I motion to adjourn to executive session under MGL 30A, Section 21A, number 2, to conduct strategy sessions and preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and contract negotiations with non-union personnel, finance director and fire chief. And number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, highway union VGG, 2 distinct issues. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, the chair so declares, and to reconvene open session for any other business and to adjourn. My assumption is, however, that we will probably not be doing any business after, but you never know.
And thank you for that motion from the School of Bill Borowski Speed Reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion in multiple seconds. As we close the public session of my last meeting as chair, we'll do this by a roll call vote. Mr. Coronis, you're the first
Aye.
window. Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Ms. Ridlack.
Aye.
Ms. Borowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are going to go into executive session and we'll exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment.
Mhm.
So thank you to everybody, and thank you to all the residents who have been watching and participating.
Second,
Is this like a record,